Testing, testing. Hey, man.
Hello. I don't see your video, though.
No, you won't.
What?
It's going to YouTube.
Oh. Okay, cool. Hold on. I need to switch microphones. And I need to switch everything, actually.
Nice flag.
Thanks. Okay, where are my AV buttons? Let's see. It's possible. Wait. There we go. It's going to let me. All right, cool. Microphone, that one. Audio, that one. Oh, good Lord, that's loud.
I'll be quiet.
All right. Okay. It's not stopping. Okay, cool. How's this?
Good. Your video's off, though.
Off of what?
Off of not being sent.
That's weird. It was on. How about now? Yeah, it looks good. Is it not being sent right now?
Well, maybe it is, and maybe Skype has just changed so much that I don't understand how it works anymore.
Where is the stream? Is it at the same old place?
Yeah, it's on YouTube. I really hope Ryan sent our guests the Skype information.
Yeah, me too. That's funny. I have a bookmark for Justin TV / PowerScripting.
Wow.
So maybe that one channel. Live now. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. I see you not seeing me. Oh, I gotta mute it. All right, there we go. Okay, I see you not seeing me. Where would that information be? Inbox and the invitation. Happening now. Invitees. Okay. So if I were to perhaps send an email to those people. Why did Google forget?
Yeah, and I think they can just click the link that I put in the other chat.
So email in the okay, yeah, the same. Gotcha.
So I know that there was a user group meeting. Oh, there he is.
Hello.
Hey, Ryan. How was the user group meeting?
Yeah, it was good. I ended up deciding I was going to get a little bit of sleep.
Yeah, you're a trooper. We appreciate you.
Right. So
why is that there? Go. So, what do you think, Jonathan? Maybe I should turn my video off and on again.
Makes sense to me.
I'm supposedly sending video right now.
We have your little picture, but that's it.
Maybe I should hang up. I'll hang up.
Okay.
Right, let me just add in Steve.
Yeah. You're not seeing that video, are you? Unfortunately, I'm fully. Video feed? No. Yep. No. No.
Ryan, I think there's some kind of buzzing coming from your microphone. I'm not positive if it's you or Hal.
So what if I mute in 3, 2, 1? It's not me.
Yeah, I still hear it.
Something changed.
Yeah, that did it.
So that would be me muting. Right.
Okay. Skype's not sending video. Why would that do that?
I had it when you first connected.
I know. It's really weird. Switch cameras for some reason. I don't want to use that camera, but okay. It really should be sending video right this moment. I don't know what to do about that. So are we supposed to use the channel called streaming?
I think so. I think our channel that we used to use got renamed to streaming because of all of the Twitch stuff that's going on. And Joel thought that made sense.
Yeah, I can kind of see it. That'll work. Sort of.
You moving cameras around?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I mean, I stopped fiddling with it. I don't know what else to do other than exit the Skype window itself. I guess I can do that. So bye.
Let me hang up and then
And there went everybody. Glad to know some things haven't changed. Hey, now I see
Right.
you.
Is that better?
Yes, I don't hear any hum, and I see how.
Yay.
I don't see you anymore, Ryan.
Hey, wait a second. Is that it? Can we only do 2 video at the same time?
That would be... No, there we go. I see both of you.
Okay. I mean, I haven't used Skype in quite some time. Wait. There it is. I see us in the stream. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I have an incoming call from Joey.
Well, answer it. Answer it.
Oh, that's good.
So what if I do that? Yeah, that's awesome. I'm running Skype in a browser, and it's smooth, man. I like that.
Wow.
So the Twitch streaming must be popular.
Yeah,
It's like
apparently
350 people in this room, or subscribe to it or whatever. Joined. Excuse me, I'm making a spot of tea. Out of respect.
Yeah, I think Mark has driven a lot of the Twitch streaming stuff.
Which Mark?
Mark, how do you say his last name? Kraus?
Okay, I don't know that Mark.
Yeah, he's relatively new on the scene, as in was an MVP for a year, but now works at LinkedIn.
Thomas, that sounds incredibly boring.
He did a lot of work on the new REST commandlets in PowerShell version 6.
Which new REST? There's so much stuff that I don't know. Are we talking about something aside from invoke REST method?
Yeah, invoke REST method. And I think the whatever the old one's called, invoke web request, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he made those. He made those a ton faster.
Okay, cool. Okay, I have my tea. We can begin. I'm not used to having the boom mic out. Jonathan, I've gotten spoiled. I've been using the mic built in to my camera.
Oh yeah.
It's it's a Microsoft Life Cam or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine for just conference calls, which is what I'm normally doing. But I haven't whipped out the boom microphone in a few months anyway.
Sounds good.
Excellent. I have my tea. We can begin. So, do you want to? What are you going to put in the feed? Because I was thinking, like, nobody's seen anything in the feed forever,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we should record like a few minutes of you, me, Ryan, chatting about what we want to do, what we plan on doing this year.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah, we can do that.
Be like 5 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that cool, Ryan?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jonathan, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we recorded. Welcome back.
When is actually the last time that we recorded? Did we look this up?
I think it was a little over a year ago. I think it was in March of last year.
So if I were to go to PowerScripting.net, it still takes me to PowerShell.org.
Yeah, the whole podcast
What's that?
link on PowerShell.org, I think, kind of went away.
Mm.
So, but if you search for us, you can find us. Or just look in the RSS feed.
Okay. Well, if I go to PowerScripting.net, I get a blog post from you from 2008. I'll drop this link in
that's the one.
chat. That's the one, right? We could fix that.
So this is actually saying, is this right? Is this right? May 16th, 2017? Yeah.
Yep.
Tim Warner. Yeah, so it's been a very long time since we recorded a show.
So maybe we should go. I mean, since that time, you and I have talked a couple times, not often, but a couple times about doing another episode. Hey, let's do another episode. Hey, you want to do something? And it never really went past that stage. So what's different this time? And maybe that's where Ryan comes in.
When we were
Ryan.
When we were at our most consistent, it was because we had Scripting Wife doing our guest scheduling for us. And she did a phenomenal job at keeping us on track and keeping things lined up so that, we had to show up and record and we didn't have to worry too much about the logistics. And there was a conversation in I don't remember which channel it was, but one of the PowerShell Slack channels that we were talking about it and decided, and Ryan said, hey, I can help with that if it would help bring the podcast back. So he volunteered to do that. And then within like a day, we had a Trello board and he had it like a link that you could go sign up to be on the podcast. And it just took it. And I think we have, several months worth of guests scheduled already, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, seriously. So I think that we should probably thank Ryan profusely. And Ryan, why don't you kind of tell us what's happening over the next few months with the podcast?
So over the next couple of months with the podcast, we're going to have a lot of interesting discussions that will come out from the community. So there's a few people that want to talk about lots of interesting little things. So we've got people like Don Jones and Adam Bertram who want to discuss things. I love
Don Jones.
So yeah, Don's signed up. We've got people also like Michael Green who wants to discuss stuff around the new version of DSE when bits of that goes live. So yeah, it's interesting because there's lots of people that want to talk. Mm-hmm. It's just getting the conversations going and getting them signed in and signed up.
So that's awesome. I see lots of old faces and lots of new faces too. So
yep.
I'm excited about this. So is the Trello board public or should we make the list public of who's coming? Have you thought about that?
So my plan is that we'll work out what's going to happen on a month-to-month basis. Because obviously we hadn't decided whether it was going to become more popular than once a month as of yet.
Well, once a month is the commitment. That's like, we can do that. Beyond that, we'll see. So
looking at it from a once a month perspective, we've probably got enough content for at least the next year and a half. And I say that because once the podcast keeps on going, there'll be people that will add in more content, especially when it comes around the sort of the conference season. So there will be some people who will want to put up, there's another new conference that's coming up within the PowerShell community, or here's another conference that's got a heavy dependency on PowerShell as part of their topics. So I think there'll be more discussions that will come in that, especially from my perspective as a non-US person for the podcast, there'll be more people from EU and sort of Eastern Europe and then the Middle East and East of the world that will look up to put in sessions for here.
Well, that's awesome. I'm excited. Jonathan, are you ready to go? I mean, this is
absolutely.
I think we just have let's go ahead and say goodbye to the people, and then we'll start the next episode, which our guests have shown up. So that's awesome.
That's
good
phenomenal.
timing, guys. All right, cool. We successfully stalled.
Joey, are you on?
I think Joey said he was rebooting because he's having technical problems.
Okay.
Bah. So you look familiar, but I can't quite place you. Have we met?
You're talking about me?
Yes.
Steve Lee, we probably met at one of the
Yeah, I remember. It was probably the last MVP summit I went to was probably the last time we would have met.
Awesome.
I think maybe you were new to the team at the time, 3 years ago.
Quite possibly, yeah. Well, not a year ago. I was new, but
wait, did we meet at not Tech at Ignite?
No, I was not at Ignite.
Okay. I was at Ignite because my company's conference was the week after.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I'll just stay in Orlando. So
this is not a problem. I can stay in
I was
Orlando.
in Orlando 2 weeks. I was actually in my house. Like I have a house that I rent out there, or rent out rather. And yeah, so it was kind of convenient.
My camera's frozen.
I had some weirdness.
It's fixed now.
Earlier.
Tell you, this is the first time I've used a non-Skype for Business, so it's all weird to me.
Anybody using Teams internally? I kind of like it.
Yeah, everyone is using Teams internally,
Okay.
partly because it's pseudo required, mandated.
I mean, I was happy when Microsoft did that. It was a good. It wasn't just relevant, like okay, everybody's doing Slack, whatever. It's actually pretty good. So I was pleased. Like, way to go, guys.
It's gotten a lot better. I mean, my team was using Slack early on before Teams existed, and we're quite happy. But we want to be good corporate citizens and self-host. And initially, early on, Teams was not quite there. It still has some issues like with the Markdown and whatnot, which makes it a bit frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly improved a lot since it first came out.
Yeah, I like the ability for like if you have a regular team meeting or something, then that room can be the same place that you meet, so you can chat, you can have a face-to-face, whatever, and it's all in the same place and just kind of integrates well.
Yeah, I agree. That integration actually works well. We use it quite often at work. So,
Joey,
hey, how you doing?
Good, long time.
It has. It's been a while.
Did I see you at Ignite? I think I did, didn't I?
Yeah, I was definitely at Ignite. Ignite is always such a blur.
Because you're drunk.
That's part of the reason.
All right, Joe, you're either frozen or you're mad at me.
It doesn't matter.
Or both. I don't know.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. But I didn't bother. Speaking of Skype for Business, I didn't bother reinstalling the client. I just used the web version and it worked fine.
Yeah.
I mean, where the AV in browsers kind of thing has just gotten to the point that's
quite usable.
Works. Yeah. Kind of crazy. Yes, sad Joey is the operative.
Frozen Joey.
And it's funny because I keep looking at his face and I'm wondering, well, is he just that still? Is it going to start moving all of a sudden and we're all going to freak out like he's a statue or something?
Yeah, he just really likes staring contests. He's really good.
You're so awesome at that, Joey. Man. Jonathan, it's funny how you have to keep moving all the windows around as people join and leave the chat. Because I know you have to physically move all the boxes.
I'll get used to it eventually.
That's funny. What is this? Are people chatting in the stream? Is that what that is?
There's people chatting on YouTube, and there's people also chatting on Slack.
Who does this? I didn't know that people actually used the YouTube chat. I'm sorry. If you're a big fan of that, I'm sorry. I didn't know that people actually used it. Can I pop that out? I guess. But if I pop that out, where's the chat? Man, I'm so out of practice. I've got Slack one window, Skype another window. I've got the YouTube in another window. I need to split my screen into more windows. That's all there is to it. Are we still waiting on Joey to try and reconnect or something?
I think we're good now. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're back.
Joey, we can't hear you.
Can you? Hello? Oh. No, I got a green screen of death as soon as the video came up, so I just installed the desktop client instead of the Universal Store app. That hopefully will fix me. It appears to be a little snappier. So
I'm using browser, and it's just working great. I'm happy with it.
that probably would have been good to know.
I had not tried it forever, or actually ever. So this was the first time, and it's working great.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think I'm here now.
Yep.
Good old Win32. Ready to go.
Awesome. How do I make that bigger? There we go. So, wonder if okay, now I can see the YouTube chat. Oh, there's like several people there. Apparently, people do use that, but I can't see how to. Oh, you're typing in there also, Jonathan. All right, way to go.
Just see that there's a tweet got into the streaming channel on Twitter on Slack.
That was
from
me.
Bruce. The ultimate sad Joey swag, a handcrafted 3-inch figure.
I still have not seen it in real life.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to try and grab one of those MVP Summit when I'm over.
Is that a backpack? I can't tell if it's a backpack or if it's one of those slings. Oh, it's nice though. You look really, really fetching. All right. So, Jonathan, maybe we should kick it off, figure out what it is that we're going to be talking to these fine young gentlemen about.
Sounds like a plan.
You guys still got to put Joey's name on there.
I'm working on it.
And your name.
Yeah, I'm last.
Okay. Well, let's how's the weather up there?
It's been really nice. It's been not raining, just a little cold, but I'd take the cold and sun any day over the gray and rain.
Yeah. We actually had like 2 or 3 weeks of gray and rain in Georgia not too long ago, and I'm
Not a fan.
no, not a fan.
It's cold and dark over here.
Yeah. Well, it is 2 a.m.
Yeah.
2:30 a.m. Thanks again, Ryan.
It's not a
I
problem.
feel good. I'll just apologize every 10 minutes or so. You're so awesome.
So I think one of the key ones for this one, Hal, and also then to Steve and to Joey, was to really discuss what about the PowerShell community is, how it's kind of evolved in 2018 and how it's going to evolve in 2019.
And I want somebody to just kind of give me a recap of everything that's happened over the past 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And I wanted somebody to talk about the new release that came out, today?
Okay.
What? Man. The last
Yeah,
one I
totally.
remember-
So we can
last thing I
jump right
remember
in.
Was version 6 shipping. So if we can just start there and just go
Start
forward.
there.
I'm
That
kidding.
was sooner than you think it was. That only shipped back. The GA was it was January of 2018.
January 10th.
Yep.
The beta. Oh, you know what it was? It was the day that it was not the beta release. Maybe.
Yeah, the alpha. We dropped the
Alpha.
alpha. I can still tell you it was August 17th, 2016.
And okay,
because
so that was
August 17 was like the tag. Everything was whether it was going to make August 17 or not. So yeah, from there we did some alphas for about 6 months. We moved to beta when we added .NET Core 2.0 support. So we moved off of 1.1, and then we GA'd in January of 2018. And then 6.1 was released slightly later than we wanted it to. I wanted to say it was in August of 2018. And
For,
September, yeah.
I don't remember exactly.
And then 6.2 we're shipping GA in March. And then after that, we may shake things up a little bit, but we're kind of working through what that means. So, yeah. But
So maybe
that's
we should back up for a half step
Mhm.
and remind our guests who we're talking with. What do you think, Jonathan? Is that fair? Or
Yeah,
am being
I think
forward?
that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Man, we're kind of rusty.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we're
Sorry,
so
guys.
rusty. I'm Hal, it's Jonathan. Ryan, welcome to the team. So, Steve, why don't we let you go first?
Sure.
I think you've been on the podcast. Man, it's been so
No, I
long
haven't.
since you haven't.
All
Oh, that's so sweet.
I'm Steve Lee. I'm the principal engineer and manager for PowerShell Core. Also on Windows PowerShell, script analyzer, editor services. Those are all mine. The team that's doing the Azure Functions work is also my team.
Oh, okay, that's handy.
But just to be clear, PowerShell language works are V2 on Azure Functions, not all of Azure Functions.
Okay. Now we
So
know.
I've been with the PowerShell team since the idea to open source. Maybe a little bit before then.
So how long between the idea happening and Joey just went over the bit of the release, time frame?
Well, internally, we did about a year's worth of work before we went public.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different people.
That was just the lawyers
who are no longer on my team, or people we partner with within Microsoft. I'm not sure if everyone is aware, like the first PowerShell Core version 5 was a nano server. And that's kind of like the code base that we started from, and that was very Windows centric.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the work that we worked with some other internal teams is really, porting it so that it works on non-Windows, specifically Mac OS and Linux distros. And then after that was, like an MVP, minimum viable product where it's working, then we have to make it work well. Well, we have to start adhering to POSIX and, Linux norms and all this stuff. And it turns out that, when people in Windows write code, there were a lot of code expecting Windows. So there's a lot of work to get it even to the state that it was. And of course, that meant that we didn't have a lot of time to spend on features, right? So the feature was cross-platform for 6.0.
I was thrilled with it. So I want to get back to some of those details, but before we do that, Joey, remind us who you are.
Yeah. So hi everybody. I'm Joey Aiello. I'm the program manager for PowerShell. I primarily, got started sort of owning the PowerShell engine and language, kind of in the same time frame as Steve did. So within the last 2 or 3 years, kind of the same thing. There were kind of dueling initiatives, neither of which I was owner of, between the PowerShell and Nano server stuff, and then we sort of. The history is that we had PowerShell and Linux actually owned by a different team, operating in parallel for a while. And so, I was doing sort of a lot of this sort of cross-team collaboration, shuffling a lot of that code that, was critical. We got to get this in the box for Nano server for this release kind of thing. And then, the Linux guys made a bunch of changes that are incompatible in order to, bring it into POSIX. And so we sort of started to unify those as teams. Steve's team took over. And then, really had to do everything with universality in mind. So, we try as much as possible not to have differing, automated behaviors on Windows and Linux. Occasionally, we're okay having the interactive experience drift apart to give people what they expect. Tab completion's a little different, or paths get normalized differently, or whatever. But at the end of the day, you should be able to write a script that works against both. And so that was sort of our target. And then similarly, we've had a lot of effort around this concept of universal modules. So another big part of this effort has been figuring out, hey, we've got this thing .NET standard. It allows for MSIL compatibility. For those that don't know, is basically the intermediate language for .NET. So when a DLL is compiled, unless it's compiled down to native code, it's just taken from C# into an MSIL DLL. It's still in this language that the .NET runtime can understand. And so we've done a lot of work so that not only can people build universal modules that work across both Windows PowerShell and PowerShell Core, but also we've gone a step further and enabled a lot of modules that just happen to fit within this .NET standard surface area to work in both Windows PowerShell and PowerShell Core. So we've made an effort to do that. Both in the engine itself, PowerShell needed some stuff in order to support some of that automagically. And then we've actually sort of taken up the mantle of working with a bunch of these feature teams in Windows, to modify some of their modules to more fall in line more with .NET Standard, or if they already work great, then we've marked them as compatible. And so, we had a blog post about sometime between 6.0 and 6.1, I believe, that basically said, hey, from here on out, If you drop PowerShell Core on a brand new Windows 10 box or Server 2019 box, all these modules are just going to work out of the box with it that ship with Windows PowerShell. So that's really been, we sort of pivoted from this focus of like, hey, we want to support Linux. That's the shipping feature in 6.0 is being cross-plat and open source, to going, okay, we're seeing some uptick on the Linux side. People are using this more and more. Let's make sure the Windows folks can move forward as well, because we do know that a lot of you guys rely on some of the stuff in Windows PowerShell or some of the module support that prohibits you from moving to PowerShell Core all up. So that's been a big focus point like the last 6 to 9 months.
So that's the compatibility toolkit that's in the gallery, isn't it? That it allows
so that's
that
actually
on down level, or is that something different?
That's actually something different. Yeah. So we shipped a feature into PowerShell Core that looks into System32, looks in the module manifest for compatible PS editions, and if it finds that, checks it for Core, and then will allow you to load it as if it was in the regular PowerShell Core PS module path. The Windows compatibility module is actually for when those modules have not been updated, and so there's CDXML modules that are going to work great on down-level machines. There's even some .NET Standard modules that are going to work great down-level on other machines, and you're able to copy those from the System32 module path into your PowerShell Core module path. But for those that aren't supported, the Windows compatibility module enables you to do this unique thing where you use implicit remoting to a local Windows PowerShell instance, and then actually execute the command against Windows PowerShell, automatically get the object serialized to CLI.XML, and then it's handed back to PowerShell Core. So the idea is that you can sort of execute Windows PowerShell commandlets seamlessly or transparently by falling back to the Windows PowerShell engine, and then still getting this albeit dead object, but still an object back that can be used further down in your PowerShell Core script. So it's sort of a stopgap. It works on the latest machines for those commandlets that aren't compatible yet, and for down-level machines where they haven't gotten the update to those modules, you can use it to use those modules. So
that was a very clever way to solve that. At least as a stopgap, that was great.
Joey, I have a question about universal modules. Is this something that's specific to binary modules, or is there something to handle all types of modules?
Yeah, so there's, what do we got? CDXML, binary, and script-based. So CDXML all just work great. We just went through and marked those compatible. We did a ton of testing. We didn't find a single instance where a CDXML module didn't work. So yay, sim. Script-based, so .NET Standard is purely applicable to the C# scenario. So that's the MSIL thing I was talking about earlier. And then you've also got script-based modules. Those are a little trickier because the script can fall into add type or invoke a static method on a .NET type. It could, use a commandlet that may or may not be in the inbox set of commandlets. So it's hard for us to know. But we currently have a bunch of script analyzer rules in development that are going to allow you to sort of generate like catalogs of what does work on a machine, and then we'll have some stock catalogs for like, hey, PowerShell 5 on a Win 10 latest box or whatever, and then it'll go through your thing and tell you, hey, we know this stuff's not going to work. Here might be a suggestion or whatever, but it can kind of give you a sort of first guess at whether your PSM1 is going to work. But largely, the ones we've had to mark we've had to test them functionally in order to know whether they were going to work or not.
So it sounds like guidance is going to.
Clarification though is that although there are the 3 main types, you can actually have a mixed type module. So and some of the Windows modules are like this, where you have CDXML and then you have PSM1 script to kind of enhance it or whatever, and then it may even have like C# code. So in some cases, we've had to make modifications to our partner team's module, like the AD module, to get it to work.
So is there a I was going to ask you a question related to script analyzer. Does anybody want to just kind of give a 1 minute, what is script analyzer, and make sure that people are on the same level?
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk to it. So basically, it's a linting tool. So basically, what that means is that if you write scripts and you want to know if you're following best practices, then Script Analyzer has a whole bunch of rules in it, and a lot of work was done by the community, where basically tells you, hey, you're doing something wrong, or here's a better way of doing certain things. So one example might be, we have a whole bunch of aliases in PowerShell that is really intended for interactive use. So you can type less, but it's really not appropriate for scripts where you really want to be a little bit more verbose, make it more readable, maintainable, and specific on what you're doing. So there's a rule that says, hey, if you're using Alias, you should really consider using the full name or even the fully qualified name.
So is there a category of modules that are not compatible and they're hard? They're going to be the last ones, out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are. Should I pull up my spreadsheet real quick?
I can talk to one of the ones that we know in Windows is Managed C++ modules. So Managed C++ is supported by .NET Framework, but is not supported by .NET Core 2.x. I believe it's all public anyways. It's supposed to come back in .NET Core 3.0. So that will bring back some of those, and we'll do some validation there and check those off. Some modules in Windows also rely on WinForms for popping up UI for asking for creds or whatever. And again, right. WinForms is currently not supporting .NET Core 2.x. It's also supposed to come back in 3.0 along with, I think, some WPF support. So as they're adding more of the .NET Framework namespaces in the .NET Core, it'll come back. But I think the big one was Managed C++, because that runtime just is absolutely not supporting .NET Core currently until 3.0 comes out.
So did I just hear you say WinForms is going to be cross-platform?
Not cross. No. It's Windows only. Which means the out-grid view hopefully will show up in a future PowerShell Core 6 where we have a port of .NET Core 3.0. But WinForms is, as far as I know, .NET team has no plans to make it cross-platform.
Okay.
Yeah, they've actually come out explicitly and said, because I think some of it got open sourced, and they said very explicitly in their project, that's not a goal. We won't be accepting PRs that want to do this. There's other community projects out there that re-implement WinForms and WPF for non-Windows platforms, but it does mean that for a ton of these modules where they sort of have these monolithic DLLs that take dependencies on WinForms and WPF for some graphical stuff in the same DLL that PowerShell interfaces are exposed, that some of those modules are gonna spin up again and start working. So,
okay, that makes sense.
But in looking at my overall list here, some of the big ones that aren't going to work are failover clusters, IIS administration, and web administration are going to be very, very difficult. I think network controller and PKI we may get with 3.0, bit transfer, some of the smaller ones as I go down the list. But yeah, no, I mean, we hit 60% in Server 2019 of modules. It was 1,900 commandlets. So,
wow.
But I'd like to get that to 3,000 plus with .NET Core 3.
So you mentioned the .2 release, 6.2. What is coming in that? So you want me to speak to that one, Steve, or do you?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we've somewhat set expectations in our community calls that 6.2 is not really going to be a major release. We're not moving the version of .NET Core forward, so we're sticking on 2.1 for that release because it is an LTS and will allow us to support it for possibly longer. Although our support life cycle will, we'll talk about that in the next month or two here. But it's sort of a minor release. I mean, it's we've been getting some great community contributions. There's a couple critical things, some of which I think Steve has worked on. We've got commandlets for experimental feature flags so that you can turn on some stuff even in the stable builds that's not necessarily fully baked yet. We've got some additions to tab completion that Steve has added, like the ability to hump completion? Is that how you call it?
Well, that's what I call it, abbreviation expansion. But I guess camel casing or Pascal case expansion is another thing about it.
Yeah, the idea is you can just use the capital letters of the commandlets to tab complete. So get Azure RMVM network switch would be G-ARMNS. And then you can tab that and you get the full thing. Kind of fun stuff like that. So, there's not, and I know we've been getting some great community contributions. I'm definitely leaving some really awesome stuff out that people have contributed. But, we've been working through a long tail too of just little bugs and nagging things that have been bothering people.
I would like to talk about that. What you just said, people have contributed and PowerShell community call. So there's a structure here that Jonathan or Ryan, I don't know if we talked about it, because what happened was, the PowerShell Core was released in beta, and there was a GitHub repo, and then all of a sudden, this thing is being developed in the open, and then there was a structure that kind of built up after that. Maybe we should talk a little bit about that and some of the goals, and it's been going long enough that you should have a good measure of kind of success, right?
Yeah. Do you want to say some of that, Steve?
Yeah, I can talk to some of that. Like, most of the team, people on my team were from Windows, where we did waterfall, where you kind of like plan for 1 year, you do development for 1 year, you do validation testing for 1 year. And it was all kind of secret, right? So, we might tell the MVP something under NDA, but otherwise you don't hear anything until we release it, and then we get feedback, and they'll tell us what we got wrong, and it takes another 3 or 1 year to get out. So the big transition to open source, besides doing cross-platform work, was really, we were, as far as I recall, we're the only Windows component that went open source. I mean, there's other open source projects at Microsoft, but we're the only one that came from Windows. So there's a bunch of work that we had to do from a legal standpoint, and then we had to define what kind of structure and governance we wanted, and Joey did a lot of that work. We looked at some existing successful projects. We looked at Puppet, Chef, we looked at .NET Core and all that, and try to model ourselves after stuff that we know that is
You ripped
working.
off a lot of Debian.
Yeah.
Debian Lite.
So, and then one of the big change for the engineering team is really not only working on our own code, it's really spending time looking at community contributions, right? And that, I think a lot of people may not realize that if you open source something, you create work, right? So definitely, as it's transparent, like everyone can see the work that we're doing on GitHub. Things can take a little bit longer because we want to make sure we're doing things right. Not that we were doing things wrong internally, but we had other checks and balances internally that don't exist in open source. Mm-hmm. So definitely it was a big learning curve to changing the culture of the engineering team. But I think overall it's a big benefit. Like, we've gotten a lot of great changes coming from the community, not just like bug fixes, but also like features. We had a lot of good discussions so that, we can get feedback early. So people say, hey, we want to do this new feature. Tell us where, maybe the parameter names might be better, and stuff like that. So getting that early in before it gets finalized is great, because now if we make a change later, it becomes like a break and change discussion, and those are always difficult. Joey's been posting a bunch of stuff on my screen.
Yeah, so Joey, why don't you talk about what we've been chatting about?
Yeah, sorry. So I just, I'm going to post this link in the YouTube chat here, but basically, aka.ms/PS community call is the home of our regular monthly community call. As Steve was saying, I'll sort of pivot to that, Hal, if you don't mind. But we went from Windows. We had a whole team dedicated to the build infrastructure, a whole team dedicated to the test infrastructure. And then we went to a place where we owned all of that for ourselves. We had to do our own builds, our own tests, our own CI, everything, and that was traded off against features and or merging other people's pull requests or just responding to issues and that sort of thing. I think at first there was sort of an upfront cost of having to get all that stuff in the groove, and we still have some gaps in terms of not everything being fully automated quite yet. But I think the reality is that even though we lost some of that, as Steve said, lost some of that stuff that we had for free with being inside of Windows, ultimately, like you guys were speaking a few minutes ago to Mark Krause's contributions to the invoke web request and REST method commandlets. We're doing the work in functions now to make the PowerShell worker work in functions v2, and that's a huge reliance on the web request and REST method commandlets. And I think that scenario is going to be a lot more successful because of the contributions that Mark made that we wouldn't have thought to made that far in advance, and probably wouldn't have been able to come up with the engineering time to do. So this is all about open source is all about making everything better for everyone, because we all have the same challenges when it comes to managing infrastructure, or hitting a REST endpoint or whatever, and those are just solutions that we don't need to solve twice. So that's really sort of been the beauty of open source is being able to take all that enthusiasm from the PowerShell community and bottling it up into something that ultimately benefits everyone across the board.
So are there any metrics that you've kind of been tracking? So is adoption? I posted,
if you scroll up in the link a little bit, this aka.ms/PS GitHub BI. So this is actually a public PowerShell or Power BI dashboard, excuse me. And if you page over to page 3 of 9, this is one of my favorite graphs to show, because you'll see that over half of the pull requests that have come into our GitHub repository have not come from Microsoft employees. And so, sometimes these are maybe a little pithier. Someone's fixing a bug, or it's a typo in an error message or something like that.
Spelling mistakes are popular.
They are popular. People do love to pad their GitHub contribution little graph with typo
Which we
fixes.
still appreciate, by the way.
We do appreciate, do it anyway. But I will say that there are some of those contributions, like the ones we were alluding to from Mark, but also there are too many contributors to count that really have contributed massive real functionality to PowerShell. So.
That's pretty awesome. So is there anything that surprised you in terms of, community feedback led to a change that the team was not thinking would happen? Any stories like that?
I think
for me, one of the big things that we didn't plan ahead for was really kind of following some of the POSIX norms for a console.
Mm-hmm.
So, we got some great feedback from some of the community, like Mike Clement has had a lot of knowledge in this space and gives a lot of good feedback, which is, the way that consoles work in Windows is just fundamentally, in many ways, different from what is the norm in Linux and Unix systems. So some the command line parameters or different name from PowerShell.exe, which we renamed to PWSH.
We should probably talk about that.
We can talk about that a bit as well. Whether profiles get loaded by default. Is there a concept of a logon shell, which doesn't really exist on Windows? A lot of these little things added up to be a pretty big amount of work that we had not initially really thought all the way through, which is one of the reasons why the 6.0 release took longer than we wanted, because we want to make sure that when Linux users who may be anti-Microsoft used it, we want them to make sure they understand we're trying to have a good experience on Linux. We're not trying to bring the Windows experience to Linux. We're trying to have a good PowerShell experience on Linux.
So can you use PowerShell as a login shell? I don't think I've ever tried it.
You can. There's some caveats there where we don't parse the under etc. There's I forget what it's called right now, but there's
a way. I think it's just bash profile.
There's some workaround. I mean, we have an open issue right now, so it's not complete. So you may not see all the system environmental variables populated if you literally set PowerShell as your default shell right now.
Which, not to oversell that, but that means that probably half your machine doesn't work if you don't have library paths and extra stuff set up. But there are workarounds if you really want to do it.
Gotcha. Bleeding edge in the meantime.
Yeah. So we can talk quickly about PWSH if you want.
Please, yeah.
That was kind of a controversial decision. I don't want to say decision, but the reception was controversial anyways. I mean, the reality is we wanted to make sure that we differentiate between Windows PowerShell and PowerShell Core on Windows, right? And we had a lot of discussions. We considered, do we want to go to the .ps2 route? And we also thought about we brought up about Linux norms, which is, shells have short names. In fact, most commands have short names. So we thought, maybe we can kind of kill two birds with one stone here. And we went through a lot of different naming options. And the ones that we wanted were not available. Posh was not available. It's already being used. I forget what it stands for, something
policy object shell.
Yeah. And then PSH was also taken. So, and one of the things we learned early is we don't want to clobber or squat on an existing, name being used on Linux, right? So we turned away from that. PWSH seemed to not be used. It was, I think, in fact, that was recommended from the community. And it's pretty good shorthand for PowerShell. So we decided, hey, let's use that. And that also means that on Windows, if you're executing a script, a PowerShell script, you can explicitly know which one you're using, whether it's Windows PowerShell, PowerShell Core, because you're saying PowerShell -C or -S, whatever, or -F, or doing PWSH. So we want to make that very explicit. Plus, it just means less typing.
Yeah. I mean, I think it worked out.
But one of the things I think that this raises is that, we, for instance, POSH, right? This policy object shell. I don't think it's been actively maintained or probably in any real usage for, very, very long time, 10 years or something like that. In the open source world, that's totally long enough for someone to come away and blast away your namespace, call their project the same thing. You see it all the time. Startups do the same thing. We knew the sort of reputation that Microsoft had going into this project, and we hadn't quite, the VS Code thing quite hadn't hit the critical mass yet. The myriad of Microsoft's open source projects that we now have they weren't quite there yet. So we knew that just like with a lot of this stuff, we had to hold ourselves to a higher standard and be absolutely explicit that we were not trying to step on the community's toes. We weren't trying to, dirty word, embrace, extend, extinguish. We really just wanted to add ourselves to the toolkit, make us as conformant with Linux norms as possible. And I think, could I tell a quick story?
Absolutely.
Do we have time? So when we launched, like the day the alpha came out, we got a pull request from the creator of curl.
I was about to bring that up.
Yes, classic story. I've told it a million times. It might be, I'll
Please
do it abridged
share it
version.
again.
But basically, it was to remove the alias for curl to invoke web request, and we couldn't do that in Windows PowerShell because it was a breaking change. We'd already done it in PowerShell Core because we knew the Linux people didn't want Windows aliases, and people erupted. It was like it came in from Hacker News, GIFs being posted to our thing. We had to moderate the issue. Couple people got nasty. The vast majority were respectful and good. But we realized we had to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Can I read the title of the Hacker News article real quick? Curl author asks Microsoft to remove curl and wget aliases from PowerShell.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's the one with a zillion upvotes and a zillion comments. And
yeah, exactly.
I think but there was a comment actually in that Hacker News thread that says something about the the engineer, and I have no idea remembering who it was. I definitely don't mean to throw them under the bus, but I remember this comment saying, that the engineer sounded more robotic in their response than the CLA bot, which is the contributor license agreement bot, right? Which was like, hey there, I'm your friendly neighborhood CLA bot. And then, we had somebody say, this doesn't follow our policies. Please read this document, like da 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 da. And, the learning moment out of that was twofold. A, Crow Guy was totally cool about everything. When you engage respectfully, honestly, you give people a rationale for what your reasoning is. They're going to be a lot more level-headed than if you come in and yell at them. But on the flip side, we realized that we had a lot of allies, and that by being being polite for the most part, obviously there may be some tonal stuff to work on, but by being polite, people really took our side. Right. And there was that Hacker News thread was very mixed and nuanced in the comments. And so, that told us that if we continue down this path, and we always made sure to do the right thing and be respectful and have good tone and all that the Linux people would come along for the ride. And I think our numbers speak for themselves. And we're definitely, it's still early days, but we're getting there. And we're really happy that so many Linux folks have sort of embraced us over the last 2 years.
Well, I'm glad that, it looks like there was a lot of learning right in the midst of that, and the results were positive. So
I know that Jeffrey has talked about the uptake of PowerShell Core and how widely it's being adopted. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, those numbers we posted earlier, they show our monthly session starts. And so I think that the growth in the last 6 months, at least since June, we have grown from 3 million to 8 million session starts per month. I think we're on track for at least 9, possibly 10 in January. So we're hitting that, sort of hockey stick part of the curve. We've definitely had major upticks. I'm still, I want to be much further along. Let's 10x it or whatever. But I think the reality is that. We've gotten major growth. It's vastly disproportionately been on the Linux side, which is really encouraging to see. Our hypothesis is that that's due to the fact that people already have Windows PowerShell on Windows today, and that until we give them a true superset of what's in Windows PowerShell, that they're going to have a harder time moving or less reason to move.
Right.
But I think we'll we'll get to that point at some point, and I think you'll see the Windows users start to swing over. And we've not been shy about the fact that we think at some point we may have to eventually put this thing into Windows. Not that that's on the horizon anytime soon, but it's certainly something we're looking into if it reaches the point where it can achieve all the same scenarios that Windows PowerShell currently can.
Well, I'm an example of one of the users that basically was able to come back to PowerShell because you came to the platform that I'm now on.
Awesome.
So it was something where I had...
Is that Mac or Linux?
Yeah, I'm a Mac guy over the past, I guess it's been 7 years now, because I started a new company and it was a totally different job than the last one. I was like, you know what, clean break. I'm just going to, they like to hand out Macs. I'm just going to take one and see what the deal is. And I'm not want to get into the weeds there, but like the point was that once you guys shipped PowerShell, it was like, yes, I don't have to, tediously do things that I want to automate in Bash anymore.
That's your experience, right, Steve?
What using the MacBook?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, like one of the things I had my team do early on was self-host. So I told everyone, try to use Linux as your default and then Windows in a VM. That way you can kind of share some of the pain if things are not working well, if the experience is not well. And we're getting some feedback from customers that we're having issues on Mac OS, and we can't legally virtualize Mac, so I ended up requesting a MacBook Pro as my primary machine. I've been using that, and there are some things I don't like about Mac OS, to be honest, but it works pretty well, and having PowerShell on there makes it a better experience. One thing I will mention though that Joe kind of didn't quite cover, which is on the Windows side. Like I think I want to just remind everyone who's on Windows that one of the design decisions we made early on for PowerShell Core is that it runs side by side with Windows PowerShell, right? Like in the old days, if you had Windows Management Framework, you install it, it would basically write itself over the previous version of PowerShell, Windows PowerShell. So if they had any issues, it was a big risk, right? You had a new .NET framework, you had a new Windows PowerShell. With PowerShell Core, we don't touch Windows PowerShell at all. We don't touch .NET framework. So it's perfectly safe to run side by side. Again, because it's once PWSH, once PowerShell, you can run both of those happily next to each other. All your existing workloads continue to use Windows PowerShell. We continue to support it. It works perfectly fine. You want to try some of the new stuff? Just start up a new instance of PWSH, and away you go.
That ding was a funny little punctuation mark there on your.
Yeah.
Your speech.
That means I get a point or something.
Yeah. I don't know if that was intentional, Jonathan. Are you have a sound?
No, that was my phone.
That wasn't me.
You got a text message at the right time, I guess.
So, do we want to talk about the security blog post that just came out? Is that something that either one of you would like to talk about real quick?
I can
I know
talk
it's
to
pretty
that.
minor, but it's worth mentioning for people.
Yep. So recently there was a Windows update that came out that affected Windows. And the main issue there, or the main protection is, in general, services run in session 0. If you know these things about Win stations and whatnot, which I probably won't go into here. But basically, you have a different session for the different accounts. And what they did is they didn't want non-services interacting with session 0, because you might have like cross-pollination problems where a lower account could get something from a higher privileged account. So when they blocked that for us, for PowerShell, that really affected WinRM, which is only used for WSMan remoting. So WinRM instantiates a new instance when you remote into a Windows box using COM, and it's due to COM activation because WinRM itself runs as local system. It starts up in session 0. So the only functional impact for PowerShell users is really for localhost. Like if you're doing a remote connection, that should work perfectly fine, and it's only for non-administrative accounts, by the way. So if you're an administrator and you want to do local loopback, like Windows compatibility module, that will continue to work just fine. If you're a non-admin and you set up PowerShell remoting to allow non-admin, then if you're doing it remotely, that should continue to work just fine. However, there is the one scenario that using Windows compatibility module as non-admin, then that will not work. We're looking at, if that is a big impact to users, gives that feedback in the repo. And we've had some thoughts, but it's not going to be a small change to get that to work. Basically, we can't go over WSMan because there's no planned changes to WinRM to address this. Now, if you're using SSH remoting, then none of this applies because it goes through a different path anyways.
Thank you. That's good.
Yeah, and as mentioned, we have a big blog, well, not big, but we have a medium-sized blog post on the PowerShell blog, giving some of the details here. So,
yeah, I know the day it came out, there was like on Twitter, it was like panic, and then people started reading it, and they're like, "Oh, that's no big deal."
yeah, I think the initial reaction. So keep in mind, like Microsoft is a big company, and the people that post the CVEs from MSRC, they tend to have more extreme language. So the initial language they had made it sound like there's a big impact to PowerShell. And we worked with them, after they published it, and we kind of softened some of it to really be specific on what the impact was to users, which is really about local loopback for non-admins.
Okay, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey up until this point. We can see a lot of change coming to PowerShell Core and what's going on with the direction. One of the things that came up in the chat channel was about changing the direction for people learning PowerShell Core, and I just wanted to throw out about PS cones written by one of the PowerShell Core community members, Joey Salo, is it?
Joel.
Yeah. Or as I know him more easily as Vex32.
Yeah.
So this is something that I think is a really useful thing, and I'm just throwing this into the chat channel so others can have a look at it. PS cones is a way of learning the PowerShell language using Pester, which is a really interesting way of doing it because it allows you to learn both Pester and what Pester is about and how that's useful for when you do stuff in your day-to-day work. But it's also good about learning PowerShell as it's going forward. And there's a lot of people that have been using it recently. It's been talked about quite a lot in the Slack channel. So it's just something I wanted to raise up for people. But this is a prime example of how the community is going to kind of helping the community learn. And that's something that as a wider sort of background, the PowerShell community as a whole has kind of like grown dramatically over the last couple of years. And I think PowerShell going open source was a big driver for that because it no longer is just a Windows only toolkit. It's something that allows everybody to get involved regardless of what their base OS is, which has been really, really, really useful. And then that's driven like the PowerShell Summit in the US, the EU Summit, the PowerShell conference in Hanover, and then sorry, not in Hanover, that's the EU one. The PowerShell conference in Asia, and also other PowerShell conferences and days that are going on. So like in the UK, we've got PS Day. There's quite regularly PowerShell Saturdays that are running around, and PowerShell user groups are growing and getting bigger and bigger. And it's a really good community to be a part of.
Glad to hear.
Yeah. Some of the like what I really enjoyed on this being on this project is really interacting with the community and seeing like the creative, interesting things that they're able to do that would never pop up as a priority for us because I don't have like a huge team, so it's really cool. And that like Joel actually has been doing a lot of contributions to PowerShell Core recently, and I know that a lot of it is he's using it as a way to learn C# better. So I think that's really great.
So you have any examples of other favorites, Steve or Joey?
You mean other favorite projects or
contributions or surprising things that were people worked on that you were like I was now not going to have time to work on that for a year.
So I should say I got to sit down with Brandon Olin a couple years ago and have him walk me through how he uses Poshbot. And I don't think there's anything that I can say necessarily publicly, but if you haven't checked out Poshbot as a way to use chat ops, which is basically integrating a chat bot in your Slack channel with PowerShell execution, you definitely should. Because there are workflows you can use Poshbot where you've got 99 or 100% of your employees not touching a PowerShell console at all, and just collaboratively administering and managing infrastructure from within a Slack channel, which was just too flippin' cool to see happening in production. So definitely that's a huge one. The other thing that gets me sometimes is just when they come out of nowhere. or I don't see them at all. And then there was one. I'm going to butcher his name. Friedrich in Germany.
Yep.
Yep. He's a Microsoft employee as well, I believe. Although I don't think he always was. I think he used to be an MVP. He just came out with something called PS Framework. And there's another one like PS Module Builder or something like that. And this stuff just comes out of nowhere. And it's like, it's awesome. I'm looking through it today. I haven't even used it yet. And I'm just like, this looks totally useful. And it's got 1 million commandlets here and all that. So, it's just awesome when like, or God forbid, it's a contribution that comes into PowerShell that, for some feature that I've wanted that I didn't even know someone was working on out there. And all of a sudden it's like in my new preview release when I'm reviewing the changelog. It's too cool. So
yeah, just one expansion on that with Poshbot. It's not just a Slack only backend. So there's work going on that's going on with Teams. There's also work going on to try and get it ported to work with Discord as well. As well as
see what I mean? It's exactly like this is just case in point. Like yeah. So I don't know. I want to make sure Steve gets a chance to.
Well, I think I'll just add, and again, I'm going to just limit it to mention one person, and there's a lot of great contributors to the PowerShell repo, but one person in particular, Aiello Sazonov, he initially was really just embracing making contributions to the PowerShell repo, and he had an interest, and I think he had a good experience, so we made him a maintainer, so he actually does a ton of work for us and for the community, and sometimes I feel like he's working like 24/7, because he's like, providing comments on PRs, submitting PRs, like, early in the morning, late at night from our time. So I think he's really provided a lot of value. I also know that not everyone necessarily agrees with everything he says, which is perfectly fine. I don't think we all need to believe the same things, but it's good to have that conversation, at least on the GitHub repo. But he's done some phenomenal work, and he just continues to do a ton of work, which is appreciated.
Yeah, so, Ilya is amazing. I Sazonov, you're the man.
So it's funny. The chat room is pretty lively on YouTube, and we've got mentions of things that like. Now I want to stop what I'm doing and go look at all these different projects. Right. PS Word Cloud, module development, PS Util, and there's all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah, and I know that we're leaving some out. I really apologize to everybody who has stuff that I use every single day. But your stuff is all amazing. Just having a mental block.
So I have a question for you. Now that PowerShell is where it is, it's grown over 10 plus years now. If someone came to you and they wanted to learn PowerShell, where do you send them?
Oh, I was going to ask that same question.
30 days of lunches.
Nice.
Just immediately.
So,
no.
The one I tell them is the PowerShell 3 Jumpstart.
Okay.
But I think that it's unclear to me what's going to happen to those videos, because Microsoft has moved to, has some new training portal site.
Right.
And the last time I looked at it, that particular video series was not on there. But that one that Jason Helmick and Jeffrey Snover did was, that's like the first place I send people. That and the Month of Lunches books. And now I guess I'm going to check out this PS Cones, because that looks like another cool way to learn PowerShell. So what else is out there that you know of?
We have a markdown document in our repo for learning PowerShell where the community has provided a bunch of links to some good resources.
See if I can pull that real quick.
We should probably think about having a AKMS shortcut if we don't already to that. I think go directly to AKMS learning PowerShell.
Is it this awesome PowerShell list, Steve?
No, that's a different one. That's another thing. That's just an awesome list of PowerShell resources.
This is also awesome. We do link this in the...
Aiello in the chat says the MVA videos are also on YouTube.
Oh, good.
Oh, cool. Good. New to PowerShell. Here we go. Like to learn more. Chat as well. I will say I'm ashamed that I have not tried PS Cones yet. I've pulled it up like 2 or 3 times and just not had the chance to dive in. But I basically learned on like Bruce's book, 30 Days of Lunches. The thing is, like, you guys pointed all those old videos. They're great because really PowerShell syntax, like the basic concepts, haven't really changed since 1.0.
Right.
There's some new features that have come along. Like obviously remoting is important, but if you're looking at a 2 or 3 video, you're thinking, oh, it's 7 years out of date or whatever. Mm-hmm. The reality is if you're a brand new user and getting started for real, that's all the stuff you need. You need like get help, get command, get member, format list, and you're you can basically figure out anything from there. And so, I think it's all about getting people the basics. And this has been one of the strengths of PowerShell is that it's an environment that you can teach yourself in once you have the right tool set for that. And then obviously there's way more advanced stuff, and you can go into about topics and learn about all these crazy features and extension points and stuff. But yeah, I mean, like all of these things kind of work because they all give you the ability to, filter and sort and access objects and, call methods and from there, like go crazy.
All right. I love this link you dropped. If you just Google awesome-PowerShell, you'll find it right away. It's just a big list of resources.
Yeah. These awesome lists are pretty popular in GitHub now.
Yeah, and that's not owned by Microsoft. So if you guys had stuff you want to add, just submit a PR to that repo.
Right. No, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's getting late for Ryan, especially. Thank you, Ryan, again. I don't think I've apologized in the past 10 minutes. I apologize for not apologizing for keeping you up at 3:13 a.m. in the UK. So Steve, Joey, any last words before we let you go for the evening?
I just am really grateful to the PowerShell community. I mean, the fact that you guys, bring us into this sort of thing, that we have this communication channel, that people have been patient with us on this journey of PowerShell Core. I like to remind everyone that you're seeing the sausage get made and you're participating in the sausage making, and that that means there's going to be some warts and some stumbling blocks along the way. But I appreciate everyone's patience, and we're going to have a thing. That if it doesn't meet your needs already, which it will, I promise, for 50 to 75% of you, it will very, very soon. And we highly encourage everyone, just go side by side right now, find out what works for you and what doesn't, because we're going to be driving down that remaining percentage, and we want to know why you haven't moved to PowerShell Core. So please, please, please file issues, tell us what's broken, self-host, go nuts, use the Windows compatibility module, use PowerShell Core, please.
So I think the only thing I'll add is that a reminder that we have the PowerShell community call tomorrow morning Pacific time. So do join us for that.
Ryan, you'll be up, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's 4 p.m. my time, 4 or 5 p.m. my time. So it tends to just be unfortunate that I've not been able to catch those ones because we tend to used to do the London PowerShell user group on a Thursday at 6, and it would be the point where I was traveling to it. So I tend to miss it quite frequently.
Well, I wonder, would it be better if we actually went slightly later in the day? Like if it was like a
no, you're gonna affect some time zone no matter what. Yeah. I was actually thinking maybe we can alternate doing like a morning Pacific, evening Pacific thing every other month or something. We can talk about it tomorrow. Yeah, although everyone online tomorrow will be edited to our time, but
yeah, my fear is that ICS file is just it's just permanently the way it's going to be if we want people to come in. But anyway, join us tomorrow morning. I had not remembered at all, so that's great. I'm going to be there now on the call. Well, it's an early Thursday. It's only the 17th. You know what I mean? That's the third Thursday. We snuck it in. So
I think the key thing here is there's a lot of avenues to provide us feedback, and we want to get that feedback because if you care about something and we don't know about it, it's unlikely we're going to do anything about it. So.
File issues on GitHub. Please, please, please. Search for issues to find out if they've already been filed first.
And we got over 1,700 issues now. So
it should be easier for people when they're raising issues now because of the beta additional functionality to GitHub issues where it will do pre-searching when you start typing the issue
thank
type.
God. Yeah.
That's been really useful for me when I've been going to look to raise issues. It's like actually this is already there. I'll just +1 it.
Yep.
On various different repositories, not just the PowerShell one.
I will say though, I implore everyone, insofar as your job allows you to, please help us understand why you're filing the bug. So we get sometimes the before and after, the expected and actual, and we think it's not a big deal because you worked really hard to come up with a very simple repro for a problem that actually has much wider implications, and we have trouble making that connection sometimes. So if this is a thing that you're like, hey, here's the repro, but by the way, I'm hitting this in an Office 365 commandlet that's affecting my ability to deploy 10,000 Exchange mailboxes or whatever, please give us a little bit of that context so that we can help use that to prioritize.
Yeah, understanding scale of an issue is really key before you can understand the actual backlog that needs to be prioritized for you guys, but also for the community as well.
Yeah.
So if we see something like that we can potentially fix, it's always good for the community to be able to do so, because you'll get a community member who'll say, I can fix this, let me try.
Exactly.
So
and that
we
takes
do.
some way.
Sorry. We do have one question in the chat room that I want to ask while you both are here, because I don't know when we'll have somebody else on who could answer this question. What can you tell us about DSC Core?
When are you having Michael on?
Next month.
Oh, okay.
That's when you should ask that question.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I can give a short version, and that without giving any spoilers away. I mean, it is a project that's happening. There is work happening. I think if you want anything regarding dates, Michael will be the one to answer that.
Okay,
But
perfect.
it's still a live project. There's full-time employees behind it. They're working on it. It's a difficult problem.
Yeah, I mean, he had a blog post that went out that outlined some of the issues, but we essentially have a V2 LCM that we use internally in Azure infrastructure, but we don't have a great delivery mechanism for it. It's really not built for anything except some very explicit scenarios, and there's just there's a bunch of stuff around that, and then there are some other challenges in terms of integrating with PowerShell Core and that sort of thing. So I think Michael can talk about that in a lot more depth for sure next month. But if you haven't, he does have a blog post up on our PowerShell blog, from a couple months ago talking about the sort of future of DSC. But I know people are itching for a new update from that. So
Perfect.
So I think that's us pretty much ready to sort of sign off for the night. There is a standard question that we ask, apparently, according to Hal and John, and that is, so Steve and Joey, what was your first computer?
first computer.
And I'll answer it from my side. Mine was a Toshiba Portage laptop back in 2006.
Oh, those were horrible.
It was better than not having a computer.
That's fair. That's fair.
What operating system was it running?
Windows XP with 192 meg of RAM, because it had 64 meg that I think was soldered onto the device, and it had a 128 expandable RAM slot.
Wow.
So I can answer it. So and this will date me, but my first computer was a Commodore 64, and I wrote in BASIC 2.0. It
Mine
had
too.
60K of RAM.
Yep.
And you pretty much knew over time, you memorized all the different memory addresses because they all did different things. And then from there, actually, my next computer was
you
an
could
Amiga
poke and
2000.
peek. I could almost remember addresses you could poke at. Man, that was a long time ago, though.
I know. If you want to write graphics, you actually stuff something into a memory address. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cooler than mine. I should have gone before you, Steve. But honestly, I have photos of me using computers further back than my memory goes. I know I still have in a closet somewhere in my parents' house a Grid laptop that still plugs in and turns on. That was, do you guys remember this Grid brand? This was I think they went into military eventually, but
No, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, Grid, big chunky laptop. Only about 2/3 of it actually came up as a screen.
Yeah.
Now make crazy rugged stuff for the military. But
I remember that. They were called luggables, right?
Something like that. Yeah, it was. And I think it had something crazy. 16K RAM or whatever. But really, I would say my first everything was a hand-me-down from my parents until I built a machine when I was 12, something like that. And that was like, I could tell you all the specs. It was an AMD Athlon 2800 plus and a Radeon 9600. I can't even remember anymore. Something like that. But yeah, computers, they're amazing.
But Joey, you never had the fun of installing a sound blaster and worrying about
IRQ conflicts.
No. I did that too. We had the family computer was like a Toshiba something or other. And yeah, I remember MS-DOS and virtual RAM and all the IRQ crap and because my dad would buy every gadget. It's like we'd have the sound blaster. It's like,
all right, fair enough.
All right, you get some of your credit back.
You get some of my credit. Plus, you still got to do that with DOSBox, when you're emulating your 5-year-old games.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Steve and Joey. Really appreciate you giving us some time and update us on the PowerShell community.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us, Hal. Thanks, Ryan, for setting this up. All you guys for setting this up. Really appreciate you guys having us here.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
Yeah, and sorry, Ryan. Man, it's so late. I apologize.
Time to go to bed.
I was sensible, and after the PowerShell Cardiff first meet up this evening, I decided that I'll get a couple hours nap, and then I woke up with just enough time to log on and get set up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, guys. Signing off, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
All right.
Cheers.
And
Cheers.
Thanks to the chat room.
Yeah, thanks for
and apparently Joel
joining
showed
us.
up after we were done talking about his modules.
You can watch the VOD.
There we go.
Awesome. See you guys soon.
All right.
All right.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Well done.
Yay. It worked. We did it.
We did it. We still remember how to do these things.
Man, it took me, I spent several hours relearning all the audio stuff and how the flow had to go and all that. Yeah. But it's easier now because I found a better virtual audio cable solution.
No, thank you, Stephen. So I'm just kind of heartened that people actually
people showed up.
People showed up. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Did I tell you? I think I told you when I went to Ignite, somebody walked up to me and thanked you and I for the podcast.
Oh, nice.
It's just like out of the blue, I love when that happens. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, I do too. Or people come up to me, I think it was a Chattanooga or the Chattanooga PowerShell Saturday, that people came up to me and started talking to me like they knew me. And I was just then I'm like trying to scope out their badge. I'm like, oh yeah.
So, I guess YouTube chat, it works well enough. I mean, we had a lot of participation there, so I guess we embrace that.
Yeah, and hopefully I can go back afterwards and dig the links out to put in the show notes.
If into the chat.
I don't know if I'll bother doing that for this episode. I probably will, just to get back into the habit, because I don't even know. I'm honestly not really sure where we're going to post it. The show notes. Yeah. I mean, I guess it'll just.
You still have the domain name? Like, can you change the redirect somewhere?
We could, but I don't have a site anymore. So, I mean, I could just put it in PowerShell.org and link to it, which is fine. It'll just, and it'll show up as a regular blog post at PowerShell.org. And then maybe if we're consistent, we can, talk somebody into giving us, a page. Because, we're not the only PowerShell podcast anymore. There's that PowerShell News podcast. Really? So
should we take them out?
No, they're cool.
We like them. Okay.
Yeah, they're all right. they still need some help on their audio quality, but they're doing the Lord's work.
Okay, awesome. All right, I found the PowerShell News podcast. Get help is right there at the top. All right, cool. Yeah, they released episode December 21st.
Yeah, they did I think the last one I saw from them was like a year-end recap or something.
Mm-hmm. Looks like they're doing 1 to 2 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking back at their website.
So yeah, the people are just saying on the YouTube chat, are we still live? And the answer is kind of yes, we are still live.
Yeah.
Just because I haven't hit the stop button
posted yet. to the feed, might have stopped a few minutes ago. So, yeah. Hi.
So yeah, next month, just for everybody still on the third Thursday, which I'm just looking up the date now, is the 21st. We should have Michael Green as co-guest. I'm not sure whether we'll also have another co-guest. I'm deciding whether we'll try and get 2 in at once.
Okay. We probably don't need to with Michael, honestly. We've had him on before, and he's phenomenal.
I mean, 2 is a lot. I mean, we don't even have to have 2. I mean, I wouldn't even plan that necessarily. This worked great, but usually it's just fine to just have 1. Is my But I'm flexible with what you guys want to do. What day are we talking about? Did you say the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be on vacation in Disney, so I'll be a maybe. I could probably do it anyway.
Okay.
Depends. I'll go ahead and put it down so I don't forget. Usually you'll be sending out an invite anyway, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's on my to-do list later on.
Cool. No hurries. I'll just put a placeholder though, so I do not forget for myself, because that would not be good to forget.
Wait, it's not third Thursday, it's third Wednesday.
Did I say Thursday though? Oh yeah, that's because it's Thursday
actually,
now.
I don't know where Pursuit is, so I don't know if it's Wednesday here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the 20th in the evening for me, our evening, the podcast evening. I don't really care. All right, cool. Anyway, awesome. Well, I'm gonna you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna play Subnautica. Actually, is what I'm gonna do.
I'm going to go walk the dog and start the dishwasher because I know how to party.
And I'm probably going to start writing some more PowerShell before going to bed.
Awesome. All righty. Night for everybody.
Good night, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
See you guys.
Bye.
See ya.
Thanks again, Ryan.